Okay, yes. And there will be a Q&A session where you can ask questions. So we'll start first with the discussion and introduction of the speakers. And then we have some talk about what is entrepreneurship and some basic idea about the entrepreneurship. And then after that, there'll be a Q&A session. So in case you have questions, you can hold it until then, and then we can have a discussion then. But, now let's get started. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Whitney. I'm the Vice Chairperson of the eTrack Alumni Association, and today I'll be the host. And I would like to welcome two of our speakers, Shaikit and Laylan, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Maybe we can start from Shaikit. Me and Shaikit met, Shaikit is from Malaysia. We met last summer in Taiwan during a youth camp, and I think he has a really interesting journey in the entrepreneurship. So I'll let him introduce himself. Welcome, Shaikit.
Right, thank you, Whitney. Hi guys, my name is Shaikit. As Whitney mentioned, I'm actually from Malaysia. So just a brief introduction about my involvement in the social impact scene. So first of all, other than doing my postgraduate studies in solar engineering, I'm also the founder of Luminary, a tech-based social enterprise in Malaysia that we are innovating the products and technology to provide clean drinkable water for the rural communities. So other than that, recently during the outbreak of COVID-19, I've started a initiative called the Serum Initiative, where we provide hand sanitizers and face masks for the underserved communities. So for example, the urban poor or even the refugees. So since April until now, we have provided to up to almost 2,000 beneficiaries that we have impacted. And we also help them to reopen their four working centers and also one education center. So other than those things that I'm running, I'm also part of the some NGOs. For example, I'm the CEO of Nation Building School, a youth empowerment NGO. And lastly, I'm actually the co-director of impact and research of the Malaysian Social Project, a pro bono consultancy organization for the third sector in Malaysia. So yeah, that's quite a number of things that I'm involved in, a little bit here and there. But in general, I'm very much involved in the social impact scene, whether it's social innovation or social entrepreneurship. So yeah, that's all.
All right, thank you. Welcome. So lovely to have you, and so nice to have a little reunion after a year.
Exactly.
Following, we have Laylan. She's actually a student from TAU. Hi, Laylan.
Hi.
Could you give us a bit of introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Whitney. So yes, as she said, I'm the last year of TAU in business economics, and I have been involved in a lot of organizations involving entrepreneurship, like in my country, Brazil, having found an entrepreneurship league, and also I was involved in an organization that some people might know is an Actus that uses the entrepreneur action in social projects. And here in Japan, I was involved in in Hutch Prize Foundation. So yeah, basically this is it, and some other initiatives, punctual initiatives that I was engaged in. So, yeah, this is it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, then I guess we can start with the, very basic question, because me, myself, although I've been hearing this word many times, I'm not actually sure what exactly is entrepreneurship. So I think we can kickstart our conversation with this. What is entrepreneurship? Or at least, it doesn't have to be a dictionary kind of definition, but what is entrepreneurship for both of you now that you have, done it for a while? And maybe we can start with Laylan. What about you?
Okay, sure.
What's your idea about entrepreneurship?
For me, entrepreneurship is basically solving problems or solving in a different way and make it better for provide a solution in a different way for the people, and this way could be and that in this way that's the difference between a normal business and like entrepreneur is for me providing solutions, basically thing.
Okay, all right. And what about Shaki? What do you think about this?
Yep.
Do you have a similar concept, or what is the difference? If you have.
So I think the concept is very similar, but I think one thing I can add on after what Leilin has mentioned, I would do a comparison between entrepreneurship and business.
Mhm.
So a lot of people they feel like business and entrepreneurship they're the same, but at least from my personal perspective, at least I'm on this school of thought. Feel free to go against this school of thought, right? But on my personal opinion is that business is where you run a business. It's for profit. You're making money. But entrepreneurship is more than that. Of course, doing business is part of it, but it's even on innovating on new things. So, for example, if you were to open a restaurant, just a typical restaurant, and provide like maybe Chinese cuisine, for example, then I guess that's making doing business. But in terms of but if you want to call that entrepreneurship, perhaps for me, I wouldn't say so. I would say entrepreneurship is things like you're innovating a new, perhaps new business model or new product or even a very brand new of social innovation. So for example, you're trying to design a new technology to provide clean energy in the rural communities, for example. So it's something like brand new, and the way you run the kind of business in a way that your business model, for example, you don't just sell to customer, but you do integration between B2B, B2C, or many manners, B2B to B2C, so all these things, right? So there are different things that you innovate that's not something typically common and it's brand new in the market, and hence a lot of startup are focusing on that. So to me that's more towards social and towards entrepreneurship in general. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Now, well, yeah, thank you. Now it's a bit clearer for me, like what's the difference between, because I always thought that, entrepreneurship is a business, then what's the difference? Okay, then maybe we can, okay. Sorry, my screen doesn't allow me to work on two things in the same time. So when there's a new participant, I have to quit the sharing screen. Sorry about that. All right, then now that we have talked about entrepreneurship, I think we can jump right into the topic of today, because we wanted to discuss about social entrepreneurship, and I think then it could be a bit different from entrepreneurship, and maybe Shaikit, since you finished the conversation just now, maybe you can continue and go on. So you have shared with us what's the difference between business and entrepreneurship, and then what's the difference then between entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship.
So yeah, so we kind of like establish what is entrepreneurship as a whole, right? But social entrepreneurship is where it's interesting. You can look at it as like let's say there's a line here. So here maybe it's just entrepreneurship or business, just making money, so for profit fully. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have like NGO, which is non-profit, non-government, and then just for impact. So social entrepreneurship for me is actually somewhere in the middle, where you're running business, you're running as an entrepreneur, on the idea of making money. At the same time, you're making social impact as well. So in a way, the way you look at it is that the more money you make, the more impact you're making as well. So the more you scale up on your business, the more impact you're making as well. So the whole idea is that how do you like run a business, but at the same time within that business that you're doing, you integrate there's a social impact element in it. So there's a lot of example of social entrepreneurship, right? So for example, if you were to, for example, you open a cafe, but your cafe, you employ differently abled community, for example those visually impaired, or maybe the communities who can't hear well, or they can't walk well as well. So you employ only on the differently abled communities, and then the moment you scale up on your business, on your cafe for example, you are able to hire more differently abled community, or you can even pay them more. So in that manner, right, it's a clear example on how you scale up your business, you also scale up your impact. Hence, that's what a social entrepreneurship is. So in general, to me personally, what I feel is that social entrepreneurship, as much as I hate to say this, is actually even more difficult for running just a business or just running an NGO. Because in a way, you're running both. You're like running a business and you're running a NGO as well. You need to take care of both. How do you find the balance? How do you make it sustainable? So there's more question than a typical business or typical entrepreneurship journey. So yeah, so I think that's social entrepreneurship as a whole to me.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And how about you, Leyland? What do you think about this concept? Do you also find it difficult to, when you work on a project that focus on social entrepreneurship? Do you think it's challenging to try to find a balance between business and NGOs or kind of non-profit works?
Yes, the definition of Shaikita was actually perfect. is there is always this comparison between NGO normal business and social entrepreneurship. And the thing about social entrepreneurship is to be for good and for profit as well. Have to have the both. One another concept that we can talk about is what we say like the triple bottom line. That would be like generally we have like the social, the environment, and also the profit. So it's like we can say like people and profit, and also the environment, the planet. So basically, have to have not impact positive impact for all, but have to have not at least negative impact in neither of these environment or people, or also the profit have to generate profit as well. So basically, this is it. The definition of Shaikit was perfect. Just adding this small concept.
I see. Thank you. And well, with that being said, why do you think something like social entrepreneurship is so essential? Like, why is it an important thing? Maybe we can start with Leyland since she finished off the conversation, and then, yes.
Yeah, sure. I think that nowadays we can see more the impact of business, like with the globalization, with the more power of the companies and the business in our lives and impacting our lives, both the projects, both the power of the organization. I think that is important to set that nowadays the impact of the business are even bigger than before, and that's why it's important to not only the governments or small communities or either communities to have, but also the business have to have this worrying about. And also because nowadays everyone is worried about the purpose or of a business of their own lives, or also wants to contribute positively with the world in general. So this also brings a value to the business as well, and also can be a way of grow the business too. So yeah, I think that's really essential, but let's keep and check it.
Okay, thank you so much. And Shaikit, what about you? What do you think? Why is it so essential?
Right. So to me, right, I think generally I can sum it up to three main points about why social entrepreneurship is essential. So first of all, we always run social impact related work that's like in an NGO style, meaning that we go look for donation, we look for grants, and once the money come in, we spend it all, then we have to look for money again. So in that equation, it's a trickle-down economy, meaning that when the profit-making company or businesses, when they have extra money, then only they can channel some money for us to make impact. And that's not sustainable, especially since COVID-19 hit us, right? A lot of businesses are struggling to survive. And what about this social impact? Are they going to be left alone because there's not much money above us to trickle down for us to use it, right? So that's why social entrepreneurship is so important, because social entrepreneurship, by the essential element of it is to strive that it has a self-sustaining model, meaning that I don't have to look for grants, I don't have to look for donation, and just by doing my business itself, I can sustain it and run it as a whole, just like a sustainable business, and ultimately making impact as well. So in that model, in a way, social entrepreneurship is not new, but the word of it comes very new recently. And with that model that we have in mind, right, that's where we strive for sustainability of that impact and also for the money making. That's why it's important right now. So that's the first point. The second point is where it's related to COVID-19 as well, right? So since the outbreak of COVID-19, especially in Malaysia, a lot of businesses actually closing down, some of them even social entrepreneurship as well, and like social businesses as well. But we also see that a lot of social entrepreneurs are getting busier than ever right now since the outbreak, because now it kind of shows to the public saying that there's a lot of empathy in it. That's when the outbreak and pandemic hits us, a lot of people are left vulnerable, and a lot of people trying to survive on their own, and no one can take care of the more vulnerable groups, whether it's the indigenous community or whether it's urban poor or rural poor, right? But for social entrepreneurs, that's where they shines a lot during this kind of pandemic, is where somehow their business is going stronger, and at the same time they're also making more impact than ever, because they see there are more people they can serve and there's more demand for it. Hence that the kind of supply and demand happens, right? That's why social entrepreneurs are getting busier and busier than ever, together with NGOs as well, of course. So right now we can see that because of the pandemic, people are focusing more saying that, hey, there's actually a lot of vulnerable groups. We're kind of highlighting a lot of issues, social issues that most of the typical citizens, they are not aware of. And social entrepreneurs, they can see that they're playing an essential role to take care of those issues as well, while making it sustainable. So I think that's the second element where the pandemic kind of highlight the importance of social entrepreneurship right now. And hence it could be the next wave of business model that people need to adopt. So the last part is where it makes money business sense. So just now it was mentioned about how it's not just about impact, it's just about passionate impact, but it also make money sense. So in a way that when you look at the younger generation, whether it's millennials or Gen Z, they are very much conscious on their personal branding. Whatever they're using, whatever kind of, whether it's clothing, whether it's their products that they're wearing or they're using, they're very much emphasize on personal branding of it, how they show it on Instagram and so on. So for example, why they associate themselves with a certain company, because they have a social impact behind it. So most of them are actually more socially conscious. Hence, that's why it makes a lot of sense for the businesses right now to have a social impact element in it so that they can attract the younger generation to be part of them. One is for them to purchase their products. Maybe now they don't really have that much money, but in the future, of course, they will have the money to purchase. The second part is also for the younger generation to be part of the company as a talent, right? So they need to hire new people coming in and so on. And most of the time when you see reports, right, even younger generation, they would rather to take a lower salary pay to choose a company that has a bigger goal and bigger impactful goal in it. So it's somewhat they want to be associated with it. So that's why we emphasize a lot on things like company culture. And this is one of the elements that all the businesses should be there. So yeah, ultimately, three main points I mentioned, right? So first is about the idea of how it's more sustainable than NGO. Second is where pandemic has really made us focus more on social entrepreneurship. And third one is the younger generation very much associate better with social impact. Hence, business should adopt that. So yeah, that's on me.
That's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you. And I noticed that you mentioned a lot of words on grants, money, budgeting, models. These are all like, I think it's connected to the next question very well. And how to start a business is probably one of the most typical questions, sorry, one of the most typical questions that people would be thinking about when you talk about business or entrepreneurship. So yeah, or the money or like the team, how do you start that? And I think it's a great combination here because Shaikid can give us more about general idea and Leyland could maybe later bring in the point in the more specific context about Japan because she's been living in Japan for a few years now. So maybe Shaikid, you can kickstart with this and share a bit of how does this whole thing start?
Yep. So I can definitely share a little bit of like the tools that we use when we are in the ideation stage, meaning that we're trying to come up with a business model itself, right? So one of the things that I really encourage everyone to use is the concept of design thinking. So design thinking has like, if I'm not mistaken, there are 5 steps. So it starts from empathize, and then it goes to define, ideate, and prototype, then test. So how it works is that first is empathize for you to be on the shoes of the problem that you want to solve. After you understand it well, that's why you define the problem itself. For example, you want to see like whether the problem that you see, whether it's a symptom or it's a core problem. So you want to look at the core problem itself that people are facing. For example, Zoom, for example, maybe it's not as comprehensive enough, it's not interactive enough. Maybe that's a core problem because the core problem is that maybe the function is not interactive enough. So your solution is maybe come up with functions where you have VR or AR to be more interactive with the crowd. So that's why you want to define the problem first, see what's the core problem. Then only you go to the ideate part, meaning that you try to come up with ideas and solution to solve this problem. And then that idea itself can become a business. Ultimately, then only you move to prototype, you come up with maybe a website, or you come up with a very, very low cost and very quick one, just to get the response from some of your, so you go to a, like a survey to get a sample size of people to respond to your solution, whether it's nice or not, whether they will use it or not, whether they will pay for it or not. That's the most important one, right? And lastly, after you have the prototype of the website and so on, that's why you go on testing on your close group or even a bigger group and see whether it works or not. If it doesn't work, you go back in the process and try to go back again. So I'll just quickly throw in like two tools that we always use in startup scene, right? In terms of ideation. So the first thing is value proposition canvas. You can search it on YouTube. They have very, very comprehensive explanation on how to use this tool. There's a few segments here and there, and then how do you fill up your ideas and come up with a solution. So it helps you to segment out the problem and understand the situation. So first is value proposition canvas, and second is business model canvas. If you are able to use these tools well, and we always use this again and again. I remember the first time I was running my startup, right? In 1 week, I ran these two models for 12 times, again and again and again, just to try to get whether this idea actually works well or not. So go ahead and use these two tools and go ahead and go and test it. And that's where you start having the idea that, does my business make sense and should I start it or not? So I think that's where it's most essential on how you start it first.
Okay, thank you. And okay, let's move on to Leyland. How about how to start a business in the, maybe focusing more on like a Japan context?
Okay.
How is it there? How is the market? How do you start basically?
Yes. So first, I think that the two ideas of the Shaiki was really good. It's really important to set these things like the business model, the value proposition, and to also get feedback of people. Like people generally don't like to share their idea because they are worried about someone have to steal, but also it's important to get the feedback and also to improve, to keep improving. And besides of it, besides saying about the idea and how to, not only the idea of the product, but how to deliver it to the customer, to the people, and how the bunch of things that makes also the business to be successful or not. It's not only the idea, but everything is said about. Mm-hmm. Also, the second thing that I would say is important to have a team, a good team. A team that is good engaged, but also the team have to have the ability to run the business properly. Like if you want to have a digital business, you have to have at least, if you don't have cash or something, one person that could be the developer, or at least it's really important. Second thing is to have a great team, a team of that people that support each other, of course, but also that have the abilities for it. And third thing is also the budget. Sometimes you need more money than if we have, right? So there are some opportunities that here in Japan, in the world, so we can say like higher level, like venture capital, but maybe that does not be, could be a crowdfunding. That also, crowdfunding is a good idea also to validate the idea, because if people support your idea, it means that it's good somehow, and it's better. In the next step could be to accede in a venture capital, or also crowdfunding, venture capital, and angel investors, and there are some opportunities for funding. That's three things that I think that's really important: the idea and how to deliver it, the team, and the crowdfunding. And also, yes, for this, I think that here in Japan, I could say that there are a lot of initiatives for pitch the idea. I think that's one thing that is good, to pitch the idea, to get feedback of people, and to connect and also network with people that could support your business too. And later I can also, if someone wants, to provide some names depending on the category of business, of place to pitch, and also to also network about it.
Okay.
And third thing we can say about also the funding here in Japan. These are some of the things that these pitch meetups and pitch environments could be one of the places that also you could get funding of some investors. So yeah, basically here in Japan, I talked with some entrepreneurs in Japan. It's one of the best places in the world to start a business. And despite the language, yes, of course, Japanese is good. But yeah, there are some people actually it's possible to set and to get all the documentation only with English, most of them at least. And then it's one of the things that could easily the process So yeah, basically it's really important to set a good team and to get people that could support your idea too. And here in Japan, luckily, I think that have some good environment for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, yeah, and then, I think now everyone can have some bit of an idea how to start a business, both in Japan and kind of in general as well. Thank you both. And then maybe next we can talk a bit about how crisis like the COVID-19 affects social entrepreneurship, because Shaikid mentioned that a bit, that it actually, instead of, you know, harming the social entrepreneurship, it actually, this kind of crisis actually pointed out or stressed the importance of social entrepreneurship. And Leyland, what do you think about, how, or at least if you're not experiencing it by yourself, how have you, observed maybe social entrepreneurships in Japan or around the world being affected in some ways by the COVID-19?
Yes, I think that COVID-19 as all of the crises, I think that one crisis could have two sides. One side that's really bad, of course, but also it creates opportunities. And that's one thing. For one side, some business have to reinvent themselves, and for another side, there are some gaps of new gaps and new needs of the people that this moment could provide. So basically, what I would say is COVID-19 and also another crisis could have these both sides, and sometimes it's good to take advantage for each. Yes, basically that's what I would say.
Thank you. And Shaikid, would you like to add something on that?
Yep,
just now
sure.
that you mentioned about, the COVID-19 and all.
So in general speaking, right, so just a disclaimer, right, of course, COVID-19 has negative impact on social entrepreneurship. So some of my social entrepreneur friends, right, they had to close down their business because, COVID-19 really affected their business. Mainly, for example, a lot of them sell, maybe their community products are made by, for example, refugees, always they sell in a bazaar or, in a physical store. But because of COVID-19, they can't really sell it there. And a lot of them try to pivot online and they couldn't. So there are definitely negative impacts towards them. But of course, at the same time, we see a lot of other social entrepreneurs actually are shining really well during this time of COVID-19 because they see a lot more potential in it, and it highlights more of the issue, like I mentioned. So one of the things that I see a lot is that how social entrepreneurs pivot their business model. So for example, I had back in Malaysia, there are, for example, Picha, it's one of the social enterprise that provides foods made from the refugees in Malaysia. So mainly it used to be like they focus on B2B business where the corporate buy their product in bulk in order for them to have like an event so that they can buy the food from the refugee made food and then be put in their events, right? But because of COVID-19, the B2B business really heavily affected. Hence, they quickly pivoted into B2C model. They even pivot to ideas like they can move into more of digital marketing kind of services because they were really, really good in it. They even look into other revenue stream as well. So COVID-19 kind of pushed most of the social entrepreneurs to pivot and to adapt to the digitalized world, and they adapt it very well on how you can essentially tell a really good story, since COVID-19 really makes us be more aware, be more empathized towards the social impact issues, right? And how do we somewhat leverage on this rise of empathy towards social issues, and how do we tell the good stories, and how do we market it to the right people, and then B2C people, public in general, are more willing to purchase in order to support the social impact. And that's how a lot of pivoting happens during COVID-19. So of course, both bad and good, but we should really look into how the good pivots happen and really succeed well. And that's where previously we mentioned, when there's an issue, there's always an opportunity to it. Either we can sulk on it, just complain about it, or you can actually try to generate idea on how do you leverage and also somewhat so-called benefit from it to make both money and also impact from it as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so those are all the discussion questions that we have, and now we will open this to a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand on the it should be in the participants, and then you see your name, and then you can raise your hand if you have any questions, or you can type the question as well in the chat and send it to us. But maybe we can start the Q&A session by, I think many people are also wondering, because you talk a lot about team building and having your team, and is it a possible thing to start social entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship in general as a individual solo human being person? Right. Feel free to jump in if you have answers to this, both Leilin and Shakit.
Yeah, I can just quickly jump in and just say a few things about this, right? So, of course, we do see founders starting off by themselves and then succeed by themselves. But to be honest, there are quite a number of so-called backlashes on it, right? So first of all, is that if you had, maybe some of you can't relate to this, but if you start running a business yourself or startup yourself, and it's really 100%, I can say that you can't handle everything yourself. You have to handle things like operation, the financial, the partnership, the marketing, publicity, branding, da 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 da. So it's like the whole business itself. There's a lot of elements you need to handle, and for you to handle it yourself, even if you go on a full-time basis, it's also really tough. Hence, the question is like, hey, if you can get someone else to come on board and help you out and run this together and leverage on the different skills, then why not? So for example, I just suggested business model canvas. In one of the element of it is to outline the resources that you need. So when you outline resources, even the human resources that you need. So you can even map out, what are you good at? Maybe you are good at business development, but now you need a marketing person. So you can go out and look for a co-founder which is really good in marketing elements. Then both of you work together, you can scale it up a lot better compared to working alone. So that's one. A second part is, of course, looking into even investment. A lot of the investor actually they would prefer to invest in a team rather than a single individual. Because if you want to like watch Shark Tank and any of the shows online, that you can see a lot of them saying that it's more solid and it's more convincing if you have the team to work for it. A lot of them can't believe the idea that, oh, you pitch for me this idea and then you're going to scale up so well, yet you can do it all alone. That makes it more unbelievable, and they believe that maybe there's a limitation to how much you can extend to it. Of course, with all that being said, you can always start a business by yourself first. You can go on the entrepreneurship journey by yourself, individual first. There's no problem with it. But along the way, do open up for the potential co-founder to come on board and build this together with you. And it's more on the idea is that a lot of people worry that I might lose my shares, I might lose my ownership of the business when I get co-founder. But think of this way: is that if just by yourself, you own 100% of it, maybe you can impact up to 1,000 people and make maybe $100,000 per year. Then you own everything there. But potentially, if you get a co-founder in, maybe you can 3 times of the impact and the money as well. And then you share 50-50 of that, for example, and then you still get more out of it. So when you have more resources and human resources and manpower to scale it up, something is scale up to the effect of 2 times or 3 times or 5 times or 10 times. And also at the time is that if you do have someone else specific skill set that you need, perhaps your business wouldn't even work in the first place. So with that mindset in mind, do have keep out and go for networking events and so on. Try to locate someone that you can resonate well and build on this.
Okay, yep. Thank you. And I have a question for Leilin, because Shakit mentioned that team would be an ideal to run a social entrepreneurship. And how do you find your team in Japan, for example? Like, do you go to networking event, or what kind of event do you go to start recruiting your team or finding people with a similar idea, Leilin?
I think that yes, one of the things could be networking events, but also I think that it's important to you really know well the person, and also know the abilities that have to not be similar to you but complement each other. So yeah, that's one thing. So you can basically you can also start, as Shaikit said, like by individual, and see people that kind of like it's really important to people, to the person that are together with you, that is together with you, to really like the thing that they are promoting. So it's one of the things you see who connects with the idea you are bringing. You can share with some people and people that, oh, I want to, and you see that it could be that one thing. Could be like in the university, like generally is important to focus more in how can complement each other and how the people are really willing to have the commitment with the business than exactly how could be. But yes, could be people surround you, networking events, or basically.
Right, I see. It's kind of like making friends in a sense, I guess, then.
Yes,
But
yes, could be. Yeah, sure.
finding friends who have similar thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, we have questions from one of the audiences. Two actually, but I'll start with one first. What are the advantages and disadvantages of being, social entrepreneur? Maybe Leland, if you have some thoughts, ideas, what do you think about?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that like for the point of view that it's possible to promote to work for a purpose, I think that's really nice. Like you work and you see you are causing a positive impact in the lives of some people and something that you really care, and you see that that's your work. That's something that also you're promoting. You are also not promoting the business but also promoting your something good around. I think that's the thing. If you care about some, you don't need to care about everything, but you really need care about the thing that you are doing. I think that makes a difference. So yeah, basically this is it. It depends of each other, but each one. But yes.
Okay. Okay. What about the disadvantages if you have any in mind?
Yes, I think that when you have to think in a lot of in not promoting a negative impact in the environment, for example, or a negative impact on people, sometimes you have to uh, reduce your profit.
Okay.
So I think that's one thing, and also limit sometimes you to grow in a way that could not be so uh, grow don't grow too much, because sometimes you are limited by your own ideal. So yeah, that could be a disadvantage maybe.
Okay, so it's more like a disadvantages from like a business perspective in a sense.
Yeah, sure.
What about you, Shy Kid? What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of being social entrepreneur?
Yep, sure. But I just gonna put a quick disclaimer again as well, is that if you're running a business or being an entrepreneur and just for profit and not for impact, it's totally fine, and we're not condemning about it as long as you're not creating negative impact. Just like how we discussed here. So yeah, if your money making kind of mindset is totally fine, it's up to you, right? So that's just a disclaimer on that. We don't condemn that. So yeah. So but in terms of social entrepreneurship, pros and cons, there's a lot. So in terms of pros, right, you can look at it in the personal perspective and also a business perspective. So the personal perspective is that the self-fulfillment, the impact that you're making, that you can see directly in front of your eyes, and you have the power to change people's life. Perhaps that would be your calling. The things that you really want to commit, you want to do for life. So a lot of like the younger generation, especially us, right? We are looking beyond just money right now, and we want something that we're always constantly searching for our calling. What are we meant to do, when we are here? What kind of things that I can make an impact? What kind of things I can do for long term, and then I can be proud of? So those kind of a lot of questions, right? Perhaps trying to go on the social entrepreneurship journey, maybe this is not the final journey that is your calling, but it can help you to discover that. And the best case scenario is that social entrepreneurship is your lifelong journey, right? That's the best case scenario. So I think the fulfillment of it definitely is on personal level. It's very very promising. So the second part is on the business side. Like I mentioned, a lot of businesses are looking into social impact now. So we have things like Tom's Shoes, how they sell shoes, every single purchase one shoe, and then they actually give one shoe to the underserved community. You have a lot of big businesses actually, even things like H&M, looking into taking back their taking back used shirts and use the fabric and recycle and reuse it and so on. So there's a lot of big brands are already looking into social impact and also environment impact. So we can say that, the next wave of business model is where you have a clear social impact in it. Hence, it makes a lot of money sense. And, you should be on this, the wave of social impact in business, right? You should be in the early wave so that you can ride along later, you can benefit better later, rather than enjoying late in the game and everyone is already there and you don't even have the experience and the branding to compete in this scene, right? So I think those are the pros. In terms of cons, I think also it could be I can focus on also personal and business actually. So on the personal one is that a lot of cases you see a lot of people are not striving well. A lot of people are questioning their choice. Things like I could have made so much of money when I go to corporate, but now I'm going on this journey and then I'm making less money and I'm somewhat so-called suffering, or I the other side of the the scene, it looks better compared to now. So the personal wise, there's a lot of questioning could happen, and it really depends on you to find out the real answer for yourself. But let's say in terms of business, right? That's where first of all, like I mentioned, to manage both profit and impact is actually not easy at all, especially on the impact side. You really have to be transparent. And since you pledge that you're making positive impact, like we mentioned before, this negative impact is something that you really, really have to look into whether you're creating any. Like, maybe subconsciously or unconsciously, you're creating negative impact, but you really need to look into the business model and go through the whole chain of cycle and see whether there's any negative impact. So that's why all these things that there's extra work for you to do. That's why hence it's somewhat like a cons. And the second level of cons is also in terms of getting, for example, investment or capital. So a lot of cases, most of the investors right now at the current stage, they're looking for money making, meaning that what's the return of money. In social entrepreneurship in general, the money making part could be slower than the typical business, right? Hence, right now, a lot of investors might not be a huge fan of social entrepreneurship yet. But the good news is that a lot of the investors or investing firm, right, they're also looking into things like impact investing, where they look at both impact and also money, where they combine both as a metrics for them to evaluate. So if you have an impact element in it, perhaps you can catch their attention and get into this pool of capital that many other business cannot get into, right? So yeah, I think that those are the general pros and cons I can really think about right now.
Okay, thank you. But that's really helpful, definitely. We have another question, which was not a follow-up, but from the same person. But when do you consider yourself as a successful social entrepreneur? Like, what are the milestones to have to make sure that, or at least to consider yourself a successful, like what to achieve basically. And since Shaikit was speaking quite for a long time, for the last question, I'll give this to Leyland first. And yeah, or when, like, what are the milestones or what to achieve, or when do you consider yourself a successful social entrepreneur?
I think that it depends on the person, sure, for sure. So yeah, it could be like to bring the value for a community. You can be to have more focus in business, to have a positive profit, because in all the business it takes some time to generate the profit. So as well in the social entrepreneurship, so could be this, could be they scale the number of people that you reach, and also just to promote some value, to also the brand could be not on how famous, but how well developed is your brand could be one of the milestones. Yeah, I think that you can have milestones of both business, more focus in the profit, in the size of the market, but also in the brand, but also in the social part, and really have the impact positive in the community you are focused on, or in the planet if you are more focused in the environment, or in how you are really are doing good, like for this. So could be the milestones for both sides.
Okay, so it's more like it depends on yourself and probably then your team if you're running the social.
Yes, I think that for success, that's pretty.
All right, thank you, Shakit.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, very much.
Mhm.
Very much agree with the things that's mentioned, right? Why I can add a little bit more. So for me, the definition of success itself, it really depends on yourself. It's not depending on how others say that what is success and what not. It really is up to you and finding what's the definition of success as a whole, right? But one good thing about social entrepreneurship is that compared to typical business, maybe money making is only your metric can really measure success. So for example, some people say, I want to be a millionaire before 30 years old. Yes, that's their definition of success. Then my question to them is that then if you achieve $1 million by 30 years old, then what's next? Did you fulfill your life goal and then you can just, everything just done? You can just leave everything and don't have to do anything else. Is that your life goal by 30 years old? So, I do constantly question things like this. So that's why I feel like, when it comes to only money making, it will either be there's a point that there's nothing else you can care about, like a million by 30 years old, or there's a point that there's never enough. You make this $1 million, you say it's not enough. My friend has 2 million, I need to make 2 million, 4 million, 10 million, 50 million. So it's a never ending goal that you can't find yourself anymore. You're just getting trapped in this cycle of trying to get more money, and then you're never happy with your success. You are never successful to yourself. So that's why I feel like, at least for social entrepreneurship, of course, in any cases, you really need to define it. Like, why are you really doing this? Is there any metrics that you can say it as a definition of success? Then at least in social entrepreneurship, you're not just looking at the business side. You can even look at the impact side. And in terms of impact also, you can even quantify things like how many people am I impacting? And the second level is how deep of my impact is towards them. Am I changing their life immediately? Like from having to live in slums area, I get to empower them all the way able to live really comfortably. That's in depth of impact rather than just how many people I have impacted, right? So for me, the general idea is that social entrepreneurship, at the very least, you have more metrics for you to measure your success. And it's really up to you to define it. So for example, for me, my definition of success when it comes to money is that everywhere I go, I see a restaurant that I want to eat the food. I don't have to think twice, I can eat the food. That's my definition of success in terms of money, right? I don't have to worry about money when I want to eat food. So that's one thing. But then maybe, for my definition of impact is where, I don't have to really quantify it, but to me, it's like every single thing that I, pledge that I'm going to make an impact on, I always run things like impact assessment that I always evaluate whether there's any negative impact, whether my impact that I'm making, I'm really truthful and transparently is an impact that I made and really changed people's life, and whether I can even document it well to make sure that I'm doing things that it's not just for me to feel good, but I'm actually doing good. So how do I even record that and quantify that? Hence, impact assessment and things like that is one of my major, like I'm kind of obsessed with it. I really love doing those impact assessment case, right? So yeah, so that's my way of defining my success. Perhaps along the way it will change, but really it's up to us to define it. It's just that as long as we are aware that we are not in the journey of cycle that there will never be success in it and you never find happiness. As cheesy as it sounds, it's all about the final thought of success meaning to bring you happiness, right? So yeah, that's really generally my thought. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. That's okay. Well, maybe we have a time for the last question, and I think we should go with this one because it would probably be beneficial for students, university students who are about to graduate, and they're wondering if they should, go into like kind of a job market, corporate world, or start their own business. What are your thoughts on this? Like, is it, I know it's never like an either or question, but like, do you think it's a good idea to start business right after graduation, or should they work somewhere a little bit and then jump back to the business in case they have the business idea? And maybe we can start with Leyland. You're graduating soon. What is your thought about this?
Yes, I think that there's not right way, right?
Right.
So I was seeing there's some good business here, and I was seeing like Progate, and is one like app for teaching programming, and he was saying that he skipped the university and decide to run the business because he saw the opportunity. If you see a good opportunity, there's no way that have to be this way, have to be that way. If you see a good opportunity and you are engaged, you have a research for it, go for it. Okay. But if not, you can, I think that in general, the job market can have also bring you a lot of knowledge. I think that from my experience, I learned a lot, not only about the business, but also about the people, about connect with new people, and that could bring some value too. So yeah, basically, there's no right right way, I think. But if you see a good opportunity, there's no way that I have to build my knowledge. But also don't need to rush to do something as well. Just see how can be like maybe.
Okay, right. Thank you. And how about you, Jack?
All
On
right. Yeah, very much agree. I think along the way, I think I would resonate a lot of points with Leilaine as well. So I think the question is a big question that I'm still asking in the market, whether a graduate should go into somewhat like self-employment or entrepreneurship journey, or should they get employment? Because since the COVID-19 outbreak, right, unemployment has been increasing. And unemployment, one thing is, oh, it's hard to find job. Maybe I should start a business. But the market itself is very risky right now. Many people are trying to survive. Is there enough money to pump into making your entrepreneurship journey a success or not? So in a general view, both ways are more risky right now, unfortunately. But what I can see is this, right, is that if you're really interested in entrepreneurship, I would say that you can even start it during your university life. So even for me personally, I only started to get to know about social entrepreneurship when I was third year. So about final year, about fourth year as well, early fourth year. So during the time when I was interested, that's where I went to accelerator program. I went to programs. I went to start and testing it even when I was a student. So my suggestion is that if you're really interested, try to even test it while you're a student. Why is that so, right? So being a student, first thing is that it's less risky. When you start working already, I guess typically you have less time to do what you really want to do or you want to try out, and you're in a phase where I need more stability than able to try this risky thing. But as a student, in a way, you always throw this term, right? We got nothing to lose, so might as well just try it, right? So yeah, so that's why as a student, if you have the privilege or even the chance to do it, and you have the interest, try it out even as a student. And when you graduate, that's where you have a clear idea whether you want to continue that or you want to start working. So it's a lot clearer in that sense, rather than after you graduate, you're like, oh, should I do this or not? And then it's like one or the other. It's tough, right? But nonetheless, let's say talking about the scenario where you graduated and you're still interested about it, right? So personally, to me, I would say that depending on your market, of course, but generally, if I were to advise my friends and all, right, I would say that possibly you can look for certain jobs first and then have a stability in it if you don't really have a career. So if you're from a family background perhaps can sustain you for a couple of years to try this out, yeah, by all means. But not everyone has that opportunity, right? So I would highly suggest that if that's the case for you, do try for get a job first. But on a side note, while you're working, you always can allocate time to try to do a business. I think a lot of articles, a lot of successful entrepreneurs also encourage this method, or even a lot of big companies or very um, very modern kind of family as well. They also modern kind of company, modern company. They also encourage their employees to try to have side business while they are working on full time there. So if that's possible for you, yeah, by all means, I would really encourage to do for you to do that. Because I don't want the case where people are too being bought in the idea that entrepreneurship is where it's going to make me rich. But the fact is that up to 90% of the startups fail within like 3 to 5 years. That's the fact. Then people don't tell about the failure stories typically. You always look at a scenario where they succeeded, because the unsuccessful stories are just not as sexy for you to put on social media and so on, right? So that's why I would encourage that the reality is that if that's a scenario for you, yeah, by all means, get a job and then do it as a side and try it out. And when you see the growth and success of it, then you can definitely quit your job and go for it. But if you're in a situation where you're privileged and you can try it out and you have enough saving for yourself to try it for a couple of years, for example, yeah, by all means, go for it. And that's typically what I did since as a student. So yeah.
Thank you, thank you so much both for really, insightful sharing. I learned a lot myself as well today, and I'll give you maybe each 1 minute to, give us some kind of closing remark from both sides. If not, it's also fine. But yeah, if you have anything to say before we close the session, I would appreciate that. Shy kid,
Leilaine,
yeah.
Leilaine, do you want to go first? Ladies first.
Okay. So first, thank you, Whitney, thank you, Shy Kid, thank you everyone that is watching. And also for the people that are watching, if you are enthusiastic about entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, I'm open also to talk about and to see opportunities here in Japan too. And yeah, basically, thank everyone and
Okay. Yes. And if
Right.
someone wants, sorry, shy kid, but if someone like from TIU want to contact you, would that be fine if they would add you on LinkedIn?
yes, perfect.
Okay, so
Perfect.
yeah, if you
It's
want
the
to,
same name.
yeah, same name, connect to Leyland. Feel free to look her up on LinkedIn. And how about you, shy kid?
Yep. So again, thank you so much for this, for this platform for us to share. It's really, really fun. Like I mentioned to you guys before this, I love talking. So yeah, it's been really, really fun for me. So yeah, I think in general, right, in terms of social entrepreneurship, again, it's a rising trend. And if you feel you do have the passion in terms of both entrepreneurship also making impact, this is a really good blend for you to try out. And I think even in Japan, some of my friends there about like things like Help Price Foundation, and there are people also looking into social entrepreneurship as well. So by all means, do explore on that. But nonetheless, whether it's in Japan or anywhere else in the world, I would love to talk to you if you have an interest in it. So feel free to connect to me on whether it's LinkedIn. I believe that no one else kind of have my name. My name is pretty unique in terms of shy kid, right? So I think it's relatively easy to find me on whether it's like Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. So by all means, connect with me and drop me a message and tell me that you're from here, from this webinar, right? And definitely we can have a chat about it. I can definitely share more and more tools that I use along the way that I never knew. And along the way until, at the very later stage, only I was told that these are the tools that I could have been using. So yeah, by all means, I would love to share those with you as well. Yeah, connect with me.
Thank you so much, both. It's so nice to talk to you. And yes, then I'll close the session now and hope to see you, some of the alumni and students in other webinars of ours. Bye bye. Have
All
a good
right, thank you
day
guys.
wherever you are.
Bye. Stay safe.